Hello everyone, my name is Keith Stanfield and I am a violinist. I've been asked by GuildIt to give a presentation on taking a music business online and surviving in this era of pandemics. For those of you who don't know who I am, which is probably everyone in the world, I started an online arts organization about 3 years ago, in fact, which pretty much started exclusively online. So it was a string quartet, and normally string quartets, if you're unfamiliar with the type of group that is, it's two violins, a viola and a cello playing classical music. Normally they're started in universities or by universities, and they're promoted by those universities. In very rare cases, you'll get 4 superstar instrumentalists who are put together by a big donor, and they sort of take care of all the financial aspects of that. Neither of those two options were available to myself and my 3 other friends who decided to strike out on this venture. So really, 3 years ago, we embraced the power of Facebook in particular to allow musicians to go straight to the customers, straight to the people, without more traditionally having to rely on the sort of gatekeepers and the larger institutions to sort of give their approval, to give us access to people we thought should hear our music. So we started about 3 years ago, and in that time, very quickly, we had one of the highest engagement scores on Facebook for any arts organization in our region. We ended up, after about 3 months, consistently averaging about 25% engagement. 5% engagement on a particular post on Facebook is considered very good. So we were doing about 5 times that. And partially that was due to the nature of our content. I think we can't really say anything else other than that it was good and watchable. But at the same time, this was our only avenue of growth and expansion and earning. So we had to really focus on how to make that work. So fast forward to today, we have one of the largest followings of any string quartet in North America. And I've started going to conferences to talk to sort of presenters and venues. This is all prior to the pandemic, of course, about working with them on engaging new audiences and existing audiences to come out to venues and hear our music. So we get about 60 to 80,000 people watching our concerts and videos every month on Facebook. And that in recent times has grown sort of exponentially with regards to the impact the pandemic is having on the arts. And so it's extremely topical, actually, that I'm able to do this presentation today thanks to GuildIt, because I've had about 3 years of practice at how to run an arts business online, how to acquire customers, and how to get people aware of what it is that you have to offer. And of course, these skills are absolutely essential now because of where we are as a society. The fact is, it takes about 6 weeks for consumer habits to be established. And I saw from the beginning of this pandemic that if this lockdown lasted 6 weeks or more, there would be a demand and an expectation for things to be available for some time. So actually, as a quartet, we went on online only almost as soon as this happened, because we just sort of anticipated that this would be happening. We wanted to give ourselves as much time as possible to prepare for this brave new world, which we felt we would have to exist in for an unknown amount of time, but certainly a long amount of time. And then also we had to start practicing and start learning how to engage our customers and our fans and followers who had previously been able to sort of enjoy all of the things we have to offer online for free. Because the fact is that all of our performance engagements, our paid engagements and things like that would be restricted or curtailed because of the restrictions around gatherings. Another layer of importance to this is that this is clearly going to go on for some time, and even if society is reopened in some way, the very last sector that will be restored will be the services sector, the entertainment sector, the live entertainment sector. I mean, there are great challenges that face that industry now, and whilst far cleverer people than I will no doubt solve those challenges and meet those challenges, we have to feed ourselves today, which means that we have to learn how art survives and thrives in the time of pandemic. The fact is, right now, there are no more gatekeepers. There are just none. Every single organization has been attacked brutally by this pandemic. It's almost as if someone has taken a great saber and sliced every single organization off at their kneecaps, so that every single thing is at the same level now because it's all online. And many, many arts organizations, for various reasons, have not attempted to grow a fan base online or engage people online. It is now absolutely vital. You don't have any other choice. And if you feed yourself through your work, which all good artists do, then we have to understand how to sell to a non-physical audience, how to engage a non-physical audience, and how to interest them in what you have to offer. You have to get online. There are no more gatekeepers. There's no more institution that's going to come along and say, you know, I think you guys have talent. We're going to give you our platform to go and play a concert. That's all finished now because nobody knows what to do and they can't have any live concerts. So they don't have a platform right now. So you must get online. It's down to you. Basically, you must get online. You must get your own platform. So over the next few minutes or so, I'm going to outline how I did that. And you can, and hopefully that will be of some use to you. We'll have 15 minutes for question and answer at the end of it, and at the end of the presentation. But you know, this may not apply to you, and we're all different people. I've had a lot of discussions with several people who wanted me to do presentations for them, and one of the amusing things to me was that many of them were looking for some sort of success story that fit in with a template that they already had. I don't want to go into too much detail, and there is a relevance in me telling you this story, which will become clear in a second. I spoke to 2 or 3 organizations, and they were looking for essentially a framed pitch for my American friends, which is, you know, a baseball analogy, but essentially they wanted a method of how to succeed at taking art online that fit in with a concept that they sort of had for various reasons. And if it didn't quite fit that template that they had, those sort of certain criteria, they just weren't interested. That's crazy because there are no templates. And when I started 3 years ago, I recognized that there were no musical templates for precisely what we were doing. And right now it's total chaos. So you'd like to think if people were serious about helping others or really trying to help the industry survive, which is really why I'm here doing this presentation, then we must be good students of things that are successful and things that have a proven track record and learn what we can from them without having to sort of frame their success in some sort of applicable way. Because frankly, you know, the reason I wanted to do this presentation is because I recognize that despite the fact that I have my own platform, if the industry collapses, then it's going to be very hard for me as well. So I can use what I've learned serendipitously over a couple of years of experience of this with others, my friends in the industry and yourself, and then we'll have an industry that we can all work in that survives this. But basically, if the arts don't get their act together and we don't get online and get a good platform online, people will basically lose interest. We've heard the phrase non-essential bandied around countless times. And I don't know about you where you live, but where I live, you know, cutting blades of grass is considered more essential than what I do for a living, which is not a society that I'm sort of happy with immediately. So that's why I'm here. We've got to get online. There are no more gatekeepers. You have to understand that you have direct access to the people. So we basically have to understand how to show them what we have to offer and how to engage them if they're interested and how to help others be interested in what you do. So now on to the solutions. We've established the problem of having to get online, how we can address this problem. Well, the first thing is psychological as an artist. It can be incredibly crippling to have to accept that all of these plans and dreams that you had for the short-term and now sadly longer-term future are sort of going up in smoke, particularly if you're a performing artist or a visual artist. You know, you maybe had a rhythm of doing shows, doing performances, a good relationship with venues or things like that, and now it's just all totally gone. You've got to look at your entire portfolio or your entire output like a little business would. And imagine that you are your own business and you are in this crisis. So what you have to do is just look at your business slightly differently, because this is a different world now with this pandemic. Imagine going into your business's warehouse, and saying, okay, formerly we sold like this. We just dealt with concert venues, we did our own shows, we collected donations, we sold tickets, whatever. None of that's possible anymore. So what in this warehouse do we have to offer that we can sell, that we can engage people with in this economic climate with the restrictions that we have? So you have more to offer than you think. If you're a dedicated artist or a dedicated performer, you should take an interest in your work. That might sound obvious to people, but you should really be passionate about what you do if you're doing it and if you're feeding yourself with it. If you don't really care, then that's sort of fine. But by being a fan or a sort of really devoted student of your art, you're basically an expert to 93% of the population. To 93% of the population. The League of American Orchestras uses this statistic, which talks about basically 7% of any populace being interested in classical music, for example. And a lot of the energy and the time that organization has and other organizations have is devoted to attacking 7% of a populace alone. And I've always actually been interested in the other 93% of people, because that's where you get real growth and real engagement. So what you've got to understand is, to people who know nothing about what I do, how can I demonstrate relevance, right? So if you can't go to a concert hall that's already been arranged and perform and sell tickets and things like that, what else can you do? Facebook is a great example of where people are milling around at all hours of the day and certainly at particular times of day. So it's a great sort of showcase. If you can understand how Facebook works and how people use Facebook, you can then produce your own content which is tailored towards that sort of group of people, whatever group of people you feel engages best with your art. But you've got to start thinking about how you can do that. So for example, if you're a performer, you perform in a group, your group can't meet or something like that, you can't actually do a performance, leverage your expertise. Give a speech or a lecture about some part of what you do that you are really interested in. If you are uncomfortable doing things like that, but but are not opposed to it, then just go online and define what you like about sort of lectures that you enjoy, and see what the key elements are, and then reproduce them in your own manner, of course. So getting a platform basically is about finding and thinking about people who are interested in your work, who your work is relevant to, thinking about where they are, how they like to consume information, and then giving them information about yourself in the manner in which they like to be communicated with. That's absolutely vital. So, you know, it doesn't have to be lectures. You can give tutorials, you can give advice. You know, if you go on YouTube, the highest watched videos on YouTube are how to make videos on YouTube, things like that. So, you know, there's a whole world of people out there, especially in the, you know, the English speaking world is infinite. It's massive. And Facebook and the internet gives you access to all of those people. One way in which we've dealt with this situation by looking at our own warehouse and saying, what do we have? You know, we actually recorded almost every single recital we've ever done for the last 3 years. So we started a podcast to basically engage with a new audience of commuters mainly who sort of like to listen to things as they drive, because we have a huge back catalogue of performances, many of which were very, very, very good. So all we have to do is tell people about, you know, one piece of music, why we like it, you know, a bit of chit chat about putting it together, which we enjoy doing anyway because we're passionate musicians, and then you put the performance on. And so we don't have to re-record the performance, that was already done. We just talk about it beforehand, it's about 10 minutes. And really, once you get into a rhythm, it's not that much work. And then you're regularly engaging with a new customer base who are becoming interested and aware of what you have to offer. So that's just one way in which we've looked at our sort of our warehouse of assets, as it were, and gone, okay, what can we use in this brave new world to advance our cause. When it comes to engaging potential new customers, you have to understand that it takes usually 7 touches for a new customer to buy something from any business. So it's not going to be the case that you do one post one time or one lecture one time and then you just get sort of thousands of dollars and it's all fine. You have to spend time building credibility. It's very, very important. And you have to have credibility as well. You have to really believe in what you're doing, because you won't be passionate enough or interested enough in it to actually make it a success, and to go the extra mile that it takes to really understand your audience and try to engage them. If you're not really in it, if your heart's not in it and you don't really sort of care about your subject, it's just a lot of work. And it's just, you know, you're sort of on a hiding to nothing. But if you enjoy the work that you do and you enjoy it so much that you want to be sort of rewarded for it to a greater and larger extent, you'll have the sort of determination necessary to do the research that it takes, to invest in the equipment that it takes, or also even to just use the existing equipment that you have in order to get this done. So that's sort of very important. You've got to sell your art and your talents in as many ways as you can online. Another way you can do this, bearing the 7 touches thing in mind and the time it takes to build up credibility, is help your partners. For example, you know, everybody is hurting right now. The economy is tanked. There's 22 million unemployed people. So, you know, especially if in the services industry or the, you know, whereas classical music, for example, is certainly the luxury services industry to an extent, it's a bit naive or unrealistic to expect that you just put some sort of content out there and people are going to start sort of handing you wads of cash. People are fighting over cans of soup in the store. I do a lot of volunteer work with the homeless, and my quartet does as well. And we've carried that on actually throughout this pandemic and actually increased it. And I can just tell you from personal experience that those lines are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're actually getting personal requests for assistance because food banks have sort of run out. So this is the context. This is part of good business practice. You've got to understand the context in which you're working. You can't be tone deaf, especially if you're a musician. So if you're an artist, you've got to figure out, and this, you know, the final part of this presentation will deal with things like cash flow. But if you're an artist, you have to understand who's buying your paintings, who's buying your sculptures, where are they, what's their situation like right now. And that is how, once you understand this, that is how you should tailor your work during this period. It's not going to last forever, but it's not going to be over tomorrow. So you have to start thinking about acceptable means for creativity and sales in this climate. So to go back to my original point about helping your referral networks, if you're a painter, you need equipment, you need canvas, you need, my father was an artist, so I have some sort of familiarity with the art scene to an extent. You need paintbrushes, you need pigment, you need all sorts of things. Now, they rely on foot traffic just as much as you do when you have your exhibitions and things like that. All of the ancillary businesses that go along with a performance or an exhibition are all hurting. So what you should really do is be proactive and reach out to all of those ancillary businesses. By ancillary business, by the way, I mean something like, you know, when you have an exhibition, you have the sort of drink stand, for example, the shop, the whatever. Well, if there's no exhibition, none of those people can earn at all. So is there any way that you can rally everyone together who normally exists in that scene and all help each other out in some way? Not only is it the right thing to do, it helps the industry survive and it's just a kind, decent thing to do, but your referral network alone is going to be only a certain size, however popular or unpopular you may be. If you add more people into that referral network, it goes up by a factor of however many people there are. It's you know, it's crazy. It's sadly like you know, we used to say going viral before this happened. That's exactly how it works. So the more people who have an interest in cross-sharing your content, and a tangible, genuine interest as well, the better your chances, all of your chances of success are. So if I was an artist, what I would do is I would work out some deal somehow with one of the art shops, one of the art suppliers, and try to see if you could get some sort of voucher for attending your online lecture in the genius of Leonardo da Vinci, or sort of how, if you, something like this. And then also you could have, like, if you pay the VIP attendance for your art lecture that you're going to give as a professional artist, a professional painter, sorry, they can also have a drinks voucher from the people that sort of, or a taco voucher from a taco shop. I don't know. I'm just sort of spitballing here, but look at the people who supported your business in good times. Everyone is suffering, and try to see if you can generate some activity via sort of cross-sharing and cross-promotion. A quartet was really perfect for doing something like this because there's 4 people and no middlemen. And so basically an audience can really get close to the heart of the organization without having to go through a chief executive, middle management, and then all the way down to the sort of janitors and performers. A quartet is large enough to make great music, and some of the greatest composers wrote their best work for string quartet, actually. But it's small enough to retain that degree of intimacy, and large enough for that sort of sonorous complexity, which makes attractive listening. So it was really, really good, a good balance for sort of watchable, engaging, and authentic content. At the same time, of course, being 4 people, we could sort of leverage all of our sort of social connections on Facebook when we were in our growth stage, our initial growth stage rather, to get things like that going. And it really, really helped because, I have my friends, the other players have their friends, but then the people who are associated with the businesses that we use and rely on for our own livelihood, they have their friends as well and their networks. And if you all sort of work together, that's a very large body of people you can reach for free. So, especially if times are tight and you've been really hit by this pandemic, that's step 1 in how to sort of reach out to other people. So that really deals with, expertise in terms of having multiple revenue streams and cultivating multiple revenue streams. Remember that this has a slow process. It's not a quick process. Just because everyone is sort of panicking now and needs instant results, that doesn't change the fact that some of these things just take momentum and time. And also, this is the worst time possible to be sort of launching new ventures, for the most part. The fact is that we don't have any alternative. So you got to start somewhere, and you just got to be patient. But every brick and foundation stone you lay today is one less that you have to lay tomorrow, and it's a day more of credibility to your new audience. Other revenue streams. If you look at a website called cameo.com, I've been really intrigued by what they've done. It's a great idea. They basically, for a fee, you can pay celebrities from A to Z, celebrities for different rates, of course, to give you a video message that says, "Hey, Johnny, happy birthday. It's Brad Pitt," or something like this. And sort of that's nice. And some of them are quite affordable. That is a classic example of how artists and celebrities, or in this case, a third party has come along and encouraged artists and celebrities to leverage talents that they wouldn't have even thought of necessarily into a sort of multiple revenue stream. For absolute minimal effort on their part, they can sort of engage audiences and increase their sort of earning potential. Now, of course, if you're a mega celebrity, it's from day 1, it's very easy to sort of just keep that going. For the rest of us, of course, that's not really going to be an option. However, what you should do is look at what Cameo.com have done, and look at the key elements of success that they have used, and try to take that into your own artistic practice. Again, what's central to this whole presentation is that you have to really believe in what you're doing and be really committed to it at all costs. It doesn't mean you have to sort of be rude to other people or not have a life. But what I'm saying is, don't be a classical organization that wants to have discussions about what's better, the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. Don't be one of those people, because what you're basically saying to your audience, whether you realize it or not, is, yeah, I agree, classical music's so boring. In my spare time, I want to talk about things that I'm really interested in. It's nothing to do with this guy. If that's the case, then just keep it to yourself, because you're look at Apple, look at the big sort of brands that have really become very successful. They don't take themselves, it's not about not having a sense of humor or not having sort of downtime, but you're Your public media is not to help you to gain friends. It's to sort of raise awareness about what you're doing and show people what you believe in. And hopefully you'll make friends along the way. But you need the level of commitment to your product to make it very good. And if you're undermining it in sort of unconscious ways, it's not going to help you in the long run, because basically people need to understand as an artist or as a musician what you stand for and what they're getting when they look at one of your products, when they listen to one of your recordings, when they come to one of your shows or hear what you have to say. You can't just set your stall out, particularly online, and go, I'm a musician, you should just give money to me because it's the right thing to do. Even though there are some kind people that will do that, charity and pity only lasts so long. And you really have to demonstrate the relevance of your act, of your art, of whatever it is. So we have expertise. We discussed Cameo.com, selling your art and talents in other ways. I have here behind me some tote bags that we actually designed way prior to this, that were specifically designed for sheet music. Okay, so Beethoven, of course, I'm wearing the t-shirt. That was just a little joke. A dear friend of mine got me this. It's really cool, I think. There you are. Basically, and of course he's over there, it's his 250th anniversary. He wrote the best string quartets of all time. He wrote between 16 and 18 of them, depending how you sort of count them. In any case, tote bags are all the rage right now, and they're sort of easy to have, and we wanted to have some merchandise that we could sort of sell or experiment with selling at our live performances. Of course, now we sell them online, but we also, made it our own by designing a tote bag which was specifically for sheet music. So that's how thick it is, and it has a leather zip at the top to keep your sheet music dry, because it's always a pain keeping sheet music in violin cases. It sort of bends, and we put a sort of amusing quote from Beethoven on the front to give it a bit of style. There it says, "What do I care about your wretched violin when I'm moved by the spirit?" Which is a typical sort of Beethovenian, in your face, I don't care statement. And that sort of is designed to give us something that we can sell that's not a performance, to create a bit of humour, and to offer something which actually serves some kind of purpose, which is relevant to many of our fans who are student musicians, who have sheet music, who need to carry them around. So things like that I would look at. What do my audience members enjoy about what I have to offer? What do they do? What do they need? And how can I serve them? Essentially, if you're going into this whole situation with that spirit, you'll find that basically this, given patience and time, will sort of all end well. Or it should do if you're answering those questions consistently. Okay, so now we come on to the sort of final bit of this presentation before our question and answers. How can we get these things done? So your cash flow. I've been asked to talk by GuildIt about sort of cash flow, especially with reference to musicians and artists in this time. It's incredibly important to understand what your expenses are, not only on a personal level, but in a business artistic level. How much do your paintbrushes cost? How often do you need to replace them? And so on and so forth. What is the cost of production for a piece of your art? The reason why that's so expensive is because we are so important rather, is because we're in this brave new world of online sales that nobody really understands, because nobody has invested any time on it, apart from Medici TV and the Berlin Philharmonic, and that's it. And it took them about 15 years, and they have way more resources than you do and way more employees. So how, in our own way, with our limited resources, can we get any of this done? You need to understand, first of all, what your base expense is of doing a painting or producing a performance. Whether or not you factor in your own time for labor, and that is up to you. But you've also got to bear in mind then, once you understand what your expense cost is, how much your talent is worth. This has to be tailored right now against the economic backdrop. I had a discussion with a friend of mine who was wondering how much they should charge for videos that churches and things like that were commissioning from them. And they were sort of getting into per use fees and all the rest of it. you have to sort of negotiate what you're comfortable negotiating with. That's part of the skill of working, of being a performer, and of being an employee of any kind, really. Negotiation is, whether you like it or not, a important part of daily professional life, and you have to get comfortable at doing it. If you're not comfortable, it's just like swimming. Just jump in, flap your arms around, and you'll get better and better. So in that sort of sense, the price for video, you've got to look at the economic climate. People are struggling at the grocery store right now. Churches in particular absolutely rely, especially in sort of less well-to-do neighborhoods, on foot traffic and physical donations. Even if it's sort of a check or something, not cash, people still have to come and put it in. And when there's 22 million people unemployed and rising, those checks are not appearing anymore. So I leave it to you to decide sort of how to price your own time and talents, but at least understand what your base expenses are, how long it takes you to produce content, and then what a sort of fair market rate would be, because this may go on for some time. So you do want to establish good relationships, as we discussed before, with referral sources, with your vendors and people who buy from you at a sort of corporate level. You want to make sure that relationship is established not just for now but for the future. So bear that in mind as well. Once you understand what that figure is, you have to then understand how much product you need to produce to earn what you need to earn, or earn what you think you should be earning. And that is how you understand how much work needs to be done each day, what activities you need to be doing in order to sort of sell that work, how it should be priced, and what your rate of success is. All those things are incredibly important to be able to plan ahead and have goals and reach those goals. You don't have to be so, when I was a child, especially growing up in the classical music world, it can be an atmosphere of everything never being good enough and sort of wanting to be the best in the world. I mean, the reality is there are some people who are the best in the world, and that's absolutely brilliant. But the number 20 ranked tennis player in the world isn't living too shabbily either, and he's having a great life, or she, in the women's game. I have no idea. I don't know what their name are, but it doesn't matter. I'm sure they're doing very well. The 100th ranked tennis player is doing very, very well as well. So you have to understand what the parameters of success or failure at any venture are. And if we apply these parameters that I just spoke about in classical music to other industries, well, people will be sort of very depressed all the time because they want the sort of number one company on Wall Street. So you have to get rid of what's unreasonable or unhelpful in terms of expectations, and you have to get more into what's achievable, practical, and realistic. And once you understand how much time and expense it takes you to do something, then you can understand how much to offer it for and how much product you need to shift, basically, in order to get that cash flow where it needs to be. In terms of personal expenses, I don't want to dwell sort of too much on this, but two or 3 years ago, I did a lot of personal research into things like this, especially if you're trying to earn your living just purely from music or art. And, personal skills like learning to cook, etc., and learning what core foods to buy at the grocery store really help. I managed to get our grocery bill all the way down to between $35 and $45 a week. That feeds a family of 3. And actually during this pandemic, when people have reached out to our quartet for food, I've been buying the same $42 sort of grocery list from Trader Joe's for each one of them. If you know how to sort of cook and what are the core ingredients you can buy, honestly, that $42 bag lasts about 10 days for a family of 3, quite comfortably. So really, what you have to do is take stock of all of your professional expenses, all of your personal expenses, and adjust them accordingly. And then you can sell your products accordingly as well. But slightly going back to earlier in our presentation, you've got to understand where your customers are, what they want, what they're looking for, and what their life is like right now. And that is how you are able to understand how to price your products accordingly in order to maintain a good sense of cash flow. Your ideal customer, where are they? How is their situation? What are they doing? And what are they used to? And what are their needs? And how is your product relevant to your ideal customer? You absolutely do need to understand the answer to those questions. Otherwise, you're just going to be flailing around in the dark online. You've got to look at the online world as basically a giant public square where everyone is sort of milling around and, but more open to have conversations because we're all wearing masks online. So we feel a bit more bold. So by answering that question as well, you'll know how to tailor your online content to attract interest and demonstrate relevance to people who you think should be interested in what you have to offer. You've really also got to demonstrate value for money in order to sort of maintain a good sense of cash flow and to keep things flowing as best they can. You have to show that people why you're worth whatever you're asking. And in the arts world, there's the sayings of arts for art's sake and things like that. And that's just not the climate that we're in. I don't think it's been the climate that we've been in the United States of America for several years, but particularly not now. Art does have relevance. All art does. It wouldn't exist otherwise. I'll leave it to you to think about that question and define it for yourselves. I have a very clear definition, which has really helped me in my professional career, and hammering away at that because it's true and right and good has led to sort of a degree of success. But basically you have to understand what is the point of your profession, particularly now that we have this sort of challenge, this phrase is of essential businesses. What is essential? What is unessential? I wouldn't feel too afraid about taking this on because the definition of the word essential is risible, to be fair. So, it is really an opportunity, a time now for all artists to demonstrate to the public or to your public why it's important to take an interest or to engage with you and to engage with your artistic works and your talents. In essence, you have to understand what your stock price is. Okay, so for those of you unfamiliar with this concept, any company that's listed on the stock exchange has a value, and that value is determined very simply by the price of the number of shares that it has. So what is your personal business's stock price? And that's how it's determined. The expense that it costs to produce your work and the price that it's sold and how quickly you can produce more work. And that's basically where your cash flow concept comes from. And if you're unhappy with what your stock price is, then you have to take steps to address that. Now, the good news is you absolutely can take steps to sort of change things, but you really do have to have a sense of serving the public and being relevant to what the public's need or what your public's needs are. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. You can't just sit there and click your fingers online and just imagine that people who have never heard of you are going to get down on their knees and hand you fistfuls of money for whatever it is that you want to do. I'm not just telling you that to make you depressed or make your sense of self-worth go down. But if you want to really go after a new audience or engage with new customers, you have to think about how they are used to being communicated with. And that's how you start a conversation and engage them with what you have to offer. You can't just simply say, "Hi, my name's Keith Stanfield. I'm this brilliant violinist. You should have already heard of me. Here's my stuff. Please give me a tip," or something like that. If nothing else, by leading with something like that, it implies that people are stupid or ignorant for not having already heard of you, which is a real mistake. Nobody wants to engage with anyone, or hardly nobody wants to engage with anyone from a starting point of being called an idiot or an ignoramus. So you've really got to think about relevance, the relevance of art in the world right now, and what your personal answer to that is, and how we can sort of tailor that and harness that answer that you came up with and reach out to the community, because everything has to have a relevance, and many, you know, it all does, but basically you have to fight your corner now, because to go back to the beginning of our presentation, there are no more gatekeepers. If you are one of the organizations or artists or individuals that was really championed by this gallery or concert hall or university, the tables have turned, times have changed. There's no more foot traffic anymore. Nobody really knows what to do. And all of the platforms that previously existed are now sort of gone temporarily. So you can either, you know, if you don't need the money or you're a sort of person of leisure, you can just sit there on the sofa and sit this out. If, like many other people, including myself, you are a performer or a professional artist who needs to work, this is not a hobby for you. You know, you don't just do sort of, you know, 5 or 6 shows a year. You really need to start embracing the fact that there are no more gatekeepers, and you are now responsible for talking to the public about what it is that you have to offer. And finally, you have to have something to offer. You have to be understanding of the fact of the time and place that we're in now, where society is, what its needs are, and how your art fits in and serves those needs. And that really does, once you understand that, that will really help you get a great sense of how to price your product, and how to maintain a good sense of cash flow, how your sort of equipment investment should go as a result of this. You know, especially if money is tight, you should understand, well, you know, if you get really inspired and want to buy all of this video equipment to start making your videos, but you've never made a video before and you have no following, and you know, if money is tight for you, that's a really bad idea. That's a terrible idea. You can do a lot with a smartphone, an awful lot, and, you know, incrementally get better and better. Another great thing about video content online, it's almost 90% mobile. Okay, so if you're producing content, you're sort of splitting hairs about the quality of this or the sound of that or the definition of this painting, that, you know, bear in mind, it's going to be looked at as a smartphone, and you've got about 3 seconds to make people interested or not. And it really is 3 seconds. And if it's not interesting in the first 3 seconds, it's a waste. So if you have a studio of 5 people working on your content for you, yeah, I mean, sky's the limit. Go to space. That's great. It's going to be really amazing. But get engaging with people first. You've got to decide what the most important activity is every day of your working week, even as an artist. Like, what is the one thing that's essential to making sales, to sort of engaging customers and having an audience and surviving? For me, it's practice. I can talk and do these flashy videos. If I don't actually sound bad on my violin, or if I don't enjoy the way I play, it's going to bleed into my work, and then whatever happens, it's just going to go down. Then there's a hierarchy. So the next thing is, well, you know, you have to sort of engage with people and make sure that your audience who've looked after you in good times are also being looked after by you in these challenging times. So you have to understand what your priorities are, and your cash flow sense is going to be a really good guide as to what those priorities should be. So I hope that's sort of been helpful in a sort of brief introduction into sort of how to take an artistic business online, or your sort of artistic works online. I'd be really happy to help anyone out any further. You can just send me an email. I think if I remember, I'll put my details on the screen now. I'm going to have some question and answers for about 15 minutes very shortly. But again, you know, it's my pleasure to do this for GuildIt today. Like I said, even though sort of I've been doing personal research into things like this for the last 3 years, we all need the industry to survive, because if art as a concept becomes a non-essential activity in the mind of the public, that's something that's going to be very, very hard to recover from. Not only is that the case, it's also a bunch of nonsense. And if we all work together on getting that message out to the public, that no, art is incredibly relevant and right and necessary for human sanity, and in terms of giving people a sense of purpose in their lives. I'm not talking about the performers, I'm talking about the audience. And answering the big questions, or helping them answer the big questions of their lives through art, then we'll all suffer if that doesn't come through. So I'm happy to do my part. My email should be below if I remember to put it in. I'm going to do some questions and answers now. I'd be delighted to take any questions that you have. Thank you very much to GuildIt again for having me. And yeah, if you want to reach out, use my details or ask me a question now, I guess. Thanks.